Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Photo Mishmash. This one being broadcast live May 27th, 2020. I got so much to say. So much to say. We're going to be talking about future cameras. Just maybe I have time traveled and brought back the best mirrorless camera on the market in 2049, and I hold it right here in my hand. Or maybe it's just one of those little stupid USB drives, you know. Who knows? Who knows?
Weren't those in the late 90s along with Zoolander's cell phone?
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I was
tiny,
thinking.
like Tic Tac size.
Yeah, remember when phones would try to get as small as possible? Now they're trying to get as big as possible.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Yeah, we just can't decide what we want.
Yeah.
That guy asking all the hard questions, looking shorter than the rest of us, even though in the real world he's taller than the rest of us, is Steve Scurich. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. I'm really happy to be here. I've had just kind of a day, and I've been looking forward to this. You know, I kind of want to get busy doing something other than just the crap that I've been dealing with today. There's just certain days, I'll just tell the audience, obviously I don't want to pass along any super private information, but you know, when you feel like you have to justify to somebody that your life on Facebook isn't actually your real life, it can just get exhausting.
Yeah.
Absolutely exhausting. And so anyway, that's what's been going on today.
Oh man.
Look, you guys, Facebook is the highlight reel of what we're all doing.
It is.
You cannot make judgments about my life based on what you see me post on Facebook. It's far deeper than that.
I know.
Anyway,
So frustrating.
Yeah.
It's not all rainbow colored driveways and black Jeeps.
Funny you say that. No, it's not. It's not.
I understand.
And some people just, I don't know. It's just pathetic.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
I'm sorry you had to deal with that, but we are glad to have you back. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's good to have you back, man.
Yep.
It was, you know, we held the fort last week, but it didn't feel the same.
I know we've gotten used to this trio.
I watched you guys, and you did have a question about my $2,000 pick, and I can't remember exactly what that is. So, Toby, I don't know if your memory serves you, and you have to ask Steve about that next week.
You picked the Fuji X-T3 with the 18 to 55 lens as your under 2,000. I just wondered, is that wide enough for most of your real estate work?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes and no. I shoot everything at about 16.5 typically, because the 21 millimeter on my Hasselblad is the equivalent of 16.5.
Okay.
So I shoot there, but I always end up cropping in, and I like that because it gives me a chance to get my angles right and stuff, and then I can crop in. Getting into that range is a little tight, but it can definitely be done. It wasn't my choice as, okay, I've got $2,000 to spend as a real estate photographer only. It was just kind of a good all around, because I could definitely shoot real estate with that. I think what you'd have to do is you'd have to stitch together some panos on certain scenes.
Gotcha.
Which can be done. But just for an all around, you give me $2,000 to spend and go out and buy some new kit today. That would be, in my opinion, a really nice investment for you.
Yeah, we felt like it's a strong choice. If anybody wants to watch that show, Steve was missing, but Dave and Carr, as he said, and I held down the fort. That's linked on the channel, and all of this content that we're going to be talking about today and all of my past videos are linked as well. But David Carr, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I actually shot a wedding last night, which was fun. Yeah. I mean, when I say wedding, obviously it wasn't like the big grand thing with 200 people and all that, but it was a very intimate, small wedding at this restaurant, like by the river. It was all outside. There were literally 10 people in the whole wedding with the officiant and the families. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. It was, you know, it was nice to get out and use my cameras again. And it's funny because I had to, like, on the way there, I had to just think through, like, okay, wait, I haven't like really used my cameras much lately, and just make sure I don't, you know, like when you get done with a shoot and you come back and you realize, oh man, I had it in JPEG mode the whole time, or oh man, I had like my ISO was on 4,000 the whole time, or some dumb thing, you know. So I didn't make sure I didn't do anything like that, but it actually turned out really, really great, and I'm excited to look through these photos.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, I know it's weird because this country is, some parts of the country are very different from other parts of the country. And we don't have to go down that whole road. But I know Ohio just recently released plans for starting June 1st, up to 300 people in a wedding. Now there are some strict requirements for that, but that's huge. I mean, here in Seattle, as you could tell from my haircut, as Steve mentioned a couple weeks ago, you can tell the hair salons are not open. Not that I go to the hair cutteries are not open yet.
Right.
This mop is.
You're now the odd man out of the three of us. I got a little. I left the top long though. I'm kind of digging this grow out thing.
I like it, man. I think you need to go for the skater cut look again, Steve. Bring it back.
Totally.
So you can go like that all the time.
That's right. That's right. It's so fine and light, and even though it looks a little thick, it's not really. So I can't really do anything with it.
Well,
it just all sits up there.
It's interesting though. You talk about Washington being still kind of not maybe fully locked down, but I know all the states are different. Yeah. So you guys are way more than we are. In Georgia, we did open up a few weeks ago. And everybody was really upset with the governor, but it's actually our numbers keep going down. That's great. Things are good. Seem pretty good. I mean, we all want to be cautiously optimistic, but I think what's hard is, and you were talking about Facebook a second ago, Steve, is that like you just see this myriad of like opinions from all over the country about what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, and it's kind of like everyone's right in their own way. Well, maybe not everyone, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, there are times when you need to be super vigilant about it and like wear the mask or just don't go out. And then there's certain situations where it's like, you're probably going to be okay. And we need to just sort of like, just be sensitive to one another about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this is going to continue for a while, even when kind of all of us are on the same plane. Different people might feel more or less comfortable in going out and being respectful of what people want and not making them feel bad one way or the other.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. As long as you're all out there kissing my grandmother on the mouth, I'm okay.
Yeah. Please don't do that.
All right. We do have a great show. We're going to talk about some of our hopes and dreams for the future. I asked in a couple of different spots for you to share your hopes and dreams for the future camera tech. Not, I've got my hopes and dreams of a peaceful green future, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about camera tech future.
Right.
I'm also going to whine a little bit about why my job is just getting harder and harder. I mean, tongue in cheek, but it's tough to stay on top of all these different lens options these days. And I want to apologize to Windows users while at the same time saying, God, I feel sorry for Windows users. And Steve, I want to pick your brain a little bit more about MacBooks that I think might be helpful to everybody. So all of that, and I haven't even welcomed the chat room yet. Chat room, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. A couple of comments about the beer looking good. I'm drinking a beer.
Oh, that does
nice.
We have a few leftovers from my dad's, celebrating my dad's, what would have been his birthday this past weekend.
Yeah.
And this was one of the beers he liked. So I got a few left in the fridge.
Good for you.
Yeah. You had a really nice, sweet post on Facebook about your dad.
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought that was great.
Man. I, for some reason, all the years that we've worked together, I think it's the first time I've noticed a picture of him. I don't know that I've ever seen a picture of your dad before.
Mm-hmm.
You guys looked a lot alike.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I definitely was kind of blown away.
Yeah.
Of course, that's no surprise, but I just did a double take.
Yeah, it's there. There's a couple of those comments. I've heard that over the years. What's really interesting is, I have a brother 10 years younger, that we do look alike, but not crazy. But when we're both next to our dad, there is just so much similarity between both. And when I have pictures of my dad from when he was young, when he was in his 20s, I'm like, that is my brother. But I have pictures of him like a little bit older in life, and I'm like, yeah, that's me in the mirror. And no joke, I did one of those, the aging filter that was super popular like 6 months or I don't even know.
That face.
I did that,
whatever.
And it was my dad. I was like,
wow.
Whoa. That's pretty. It was a little creepy how much it was truly my dad, when he was in his, early 60s.
I'm so grateful that picture did not turn out like the face swap that you and I did about 4 or 5 years ago.
I don't know if there's a record of that anywhere, but that should die. That should die in the deepest, darkest corner of the internet.
I burned that, man.
That was before my time.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who wants to imagine it, just look at those caterpillar eyebrows Steve's got up there, and put those on my delicate, thin-boned, blonde features, and you have the stuff of nightmares.
That's hilarious.
It was crazy. And Carr, the reason that we haven't done this since your time has come now is we've never done a face swap since then.
Okay, yeah. All right, you learned your lesson.
Yeah,
good.
there are some things that should just be left alone.
I think so.
Yeah. I do want to give a special shout out to Angela and Trelina. Super long time. I think in the chat room, they have been followers of this channel for the longest period of time, not to mention just awesome people. The chat room is filled with awesome people, but Angela and Trelina are some of my favorites. So thank you for joining us. And David, Steve, you guys drinking anything today?
It's the old standby. I've just got another martini, man.
Martini.
You know, it's like like 3 minutes before I logged in, I was like whipping it up because I was finishing up one of my editing videos, just posted it, and so I was like I was scrambling to get it all done. So,
well, you did better than I did.
It worked.
I was, as you guys know, I kind of joined in with you late, right before we went live, and so I'm just sitting here with water in a flask.
So, what proof though? What proof is that?
Yeah, not too exciting. I'm going straight for the 117 proof after this.
I'm sure we'll make up for it.
That kind of day. All right. Well, we're glad both of you guys are here and you got something in your hand. So Dave, you said you shot a wedding. Steve, you've been having a kind of day. David, I want to make sure, have you gotten out a new how I edit video?
Yeah, I just posted one like right before we went on air here. And
awesome.
Look, if I can just say real quick, I worked all day on this. I was trying so hard to edit one of my Antarctica photos the way that I had edited it before and like record myself doing it. And it was a fail every time. And it kept looking so horrible. And I just kept scrapping it. So finally, I just picked the whole different photo altogether. In fact,
were you trying to do the long mountain range with the orangey yellow sky and stuff?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite pictures you've ever done.
Well, if I could show you the process, I mean, I did it the most backwards way because I didn't even use Photoshop. I had to split the mountains from the sky and all this stuff to really, change the exposure on those and the color. And I ended up doing it all in Lightroom, like actually painting over the mountains with an adjustment brush, but getting so fine detailed. Because you know how it looks sometimes when you try to like affect the sky differently than the foreground, it'll start looking like you superimpose the sky, like like it looks fake. And it kept looking fake, and it kept looking fake. So anyway, there's my shot from Seattle, Toby, when we went and shot at night on that bridge of the Seattle skyline. So I edited that one. That's my new video. So
awesome. Yeah. I'll go look for that.
And it's the shortest one yet.
Oh, nice. Nice. That's good. I think it's great to hear people hear that I've done that same thing where I've edited a picture, loved it, and then I'm like, let me teach everybody how I edited this.
Yeah.
And an hour in, I'm like, I'm struggling to recreate this.
I don't know what I did. So.
Enough time spent. So if you're tuning in, I forgot to put the show notes until just now. So you got to refresh, and then you can look for the link right down below. But it's got David Carr's YouTube channel on there, and you can find all of that information there. I'm also doing a bad job because I forgot about banners to remind people to follow you guys. David Carr is at DavidCarr_photo on Instagram. And of course, Steve is at Scurich on Instagram. You can follow those guys and give them thanks for watching the show. And don't forget to hit thumbs up if you are watching the show and appreciate our time. So thank you all for that. Sue Stevens says she loves your editing videos.
Yeah, I just was thanking her in the chat. I appreciate that, Sue. I'm just trying to figure out what works and what people like. And I realize some of these videos are really long and tedious, but that's just the process. So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. I've been hard at work at the kind of the quicker Monday Minute. The last one I released though was almost 5 minutes long. So, but just the quicker Lightroom videos, so you can go watch those. And last week we had on the Creative Lounge. It was our second episode. Timothy Drury, keyboardist for some big names in the past, but now does these really cool art. Photography and music combos where he sits inside a cube projecting his beautiful imagery while he plays the keyboard. He was really cool guy to talk to. You can go watch that. It's on the channel. It's gotten great feedback on that show so far. And so if you missed that, go give it a watch. Put it on the background as you're doing something in the house and give it a listen. But it's full of just some kind of cool insights into a person whose brain works a little bit different than many of us, I think.
That's cool.
So
Yeah.
it was cool. Yeah. And I still want to get out the raw exchange kind of video going at some point in the future. I hope to do that. And I really will have actual other content like reviews coming soon. Just been, believe it or not, a little busy, but
that's all right.
It's been good stuff.
That's good.
All right. I feel like there's one. Oh, and I also talked for the pen members. If you missed this, the Tuesday tip that went out yesterday was really the basics of macro and my suggestions for current best macro lenses for a variety of camera systems. So kind of what is the difference between a 40 millimeter macro and a 100 millimeter macro? We've had some.
It was a great tip. Thank you. For that out. I always like when things are kind of boiled down to simplicity. It's not to say that you shouldn't go down a bunch of rabbit holes and get into the nitty gritty of things and stuff. But for me, it was just really helpful. My wife really wants to get into macro photography, so we're starting to get her trained up to shoot houses with me. But she actually said in July is her birthday, and she wants a macro lens for setup. And she's had her eye on it now for years, and she got real serious. She's like, that is what I want for my birthday. Really, it's not a real, husband to a wife. That's not like, it's a nice gift, but it's not a real heartfelt kind of beautiful sort of gift. And she's like, no, because I gave her a tripod once for her birthday, and that didn't go over so well.
Well, and wasn't that a tripod that we had as part of a review? Was that like a leftover review tripod?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
that'd be even worse.
A little bit of credit here. I was working at Sammy's camera, and I got her a red Me Photo Globetrotter carbon fiber. They were, as an employee, I got her a really great deal. So I kind of got the top of the line in the color that she really wanted pink, but in the Globetrotter carbon fiber, they didn't make pink. So her other favorite color is red. Anyway, she was super grateful, and she loves it and stuff. But it wasn't. She really asked for this macro lens though, so I got to try to make that happen somehow.
That's great. I mean, every kiss doesn't begin with K. Sometimes it begins with a macro lens. So.
Yeah, every kiss begins with a Canon macro.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Very cool. David Carr, do you own a macro lens?
I do. I have the Nikon 105 2.8. That is such an awesome lens for portraits as well. Yeah. I've shot portraits with it that I absolutely love. It's so sharp and the colors are beautiful. Nice. For the macro stuff as well. It's I used it last night in the wedding for the rings. So
nice. Yep. Perfect use. Cool. All right. I think that's all of what we've been up to and the content that's gone out. Let's dive into the part of the show where we share a few of your Lightroom picks and give them some thoughts. Now, word of warning, I updated to Catalina and it just told me I didn't have permission to share this. So I'm going to click this and see what happens. Looks like it's working, doesn't it?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Go.
It said you don't have permissions and you're going to have to restart Chrome to do that. Well, it lied. Okay, here we go. And I got to remember, I think I've got it in the notes, but I got to remember that I have to apologize to Windows users and I also have to pity them at the same time. So, all right. First up, we've got Robert Forehands. It's just called Lens 7. And it...
lens ball.
I think so. I think he's got a lens ball going on. Doesn't look like he's getting burnt by this one, Steve.
Yeah, man. I got fried in the Arctic with lens ball.
And what do we got? Is it like a traffic light in the background or something like that?
You know what? I just want to jump in real quickly, Robert. I know you're watching. This is probably the best use of a lens ball I've ever seen.
It's really cool.
I haven't combed the internet to see lens ball shots or anything like that. So it's not like I have a whole library of lens ball photographs to go through. But kudos to you, Robert. I'm not a huge fan of this lens ball thing, but I dig this image a lot.
Yeah, it's strong. It's really strong. It's just kind of a cool scene, and there's enough light on the hand and idea of the hand to know that you've got this lens ball there, and then you've got this background. I can't quite figure out the background. Maybe it is a picture you've just pulled up on the monitor or something, but Oh, it's a YouTube video of an abstract B-roll.
Huh.
Oh man, this would be cool video. As well to film your lens ball with the video in the background.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me want to dig mine out. It's in the somewhere. In the
I
darkest
love the creativity that he had here. I
Yeah, it's really great.
to have done this.
Yeah, I don't have any suggestions. I mean, you know, a little bit bright over here on the right hand side.
Yeah.
But I love the way that the lens ball is flipping our image here.
Mhm.
Just very cool.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
saying the reflection of the red on the left side of the lens ball, I would want to, you know, kind of take out that really bright section there, but really it's reflective of what's going on with the red on the right side. So once you put it together, that it's just it's a mirrored, you know, image of
Yeah.
what's happening. You kind of have to leave that in there unless you do some alterations to the far right. I like the way it's been processed. I love the silhouette of the hand. Puts a, you know, kind of human element in there. And I think, Robert, you just turned out a really cool, interesting, thought-provoking photograph. And it's one that people will stop and look at until they kind of figure out what they're looking at. And I respect that a lot.
Yeah. Interesting, Robert. You say you set it up on a tripod, turned off all the lights and then shot, but then you put did you put your hand in there because you wanted that element for the human element? I think that was a smart choice.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, cool. Very nice.
Very cool.
We're going to move on because we don't have anything else to say except platitudes. All right. Brooke has submitted this Eastern Sierra print is the file name. And there's a lot to love here, but then I'm just going to plow ahead because two things that jump out at me that I think jump out, at least one does for you guys too, but the other you might be missing because of YouTube compression. It feels a little over sharpened when we get in close. I just feel like the texture and the clarity have been turned up a little too much. I would turn those back down. But the other thing is, as much as it pains me to get rid of some of this curve, that shadow really kind of distracts me from taking in the scene. Do you guys feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like the shadow was probably that was the initial thing that just kind of drew my attention, and not in the best way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you did with that crop there, because then you take the shadow out of there. Toby's doing this in Lightroom, which can be done. But I would personally work this in Photoshop. I sometimes feel like a broken record when I say stuff like that, but this type of work I always do in Photoshop. It just does a much better job because it's actually altering the pixels. It's not trying to be non-destructive, which is a whole other discussion. But getting that out of there, and then I would actually come down from the top too, make it a nice wide horizontal.
Yeah.
Because the clouds, once they kind of fill in with white, and there's some beautiful texture and layers and stuff up there, but you really want the viewer to stay focused on the mountain range. And the other thing, when you've come in a little tighter, that I noticed is that rain on the left side of the photograph coming down. It's hard to tell, but as you come in a little tighter, you start to notice stuff like that was missed when the scene was wider.
Yeah, Brooke says you use Nick for the first time to sharpen. I would look at your settings there, Brooke. Nick is great, but make sure that they are on the lower end. I would suggest.
Yeah, she said maybe overdid it. I would probably. It's hard to tell, Brooke, because I'm looking at it a screen. But it does look a little crispy for my taste. The mountains should be, clear and feel the texture and stuff. And then I would probably go in with a graduated filter and soften the sky just a little bit. I always like that nice soft sky, soft clouds kind of meeting a jagged mountain edge. But I think the processing, the color choice and stuff looks really nice.
Yeah.
Great exposure. And just I like to teach you a little bit. Yes, I agree with Steve. Photoshop would have been better down here. If you do want to stick in Lightroom for whatever reason, you notice that at first I tried to do it in one fell swoop. That failed horribly. And I had a little bit more success when I did little pieces at a time. But even then, still struggles there because, as Steve said, Lightroom is trying to not destroy any pixels, or it can't. It just can't do that. Not the way the program works. So it's pretty limited.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. There's only one other thing I thought I would just mention. The bottom right corner, there's just like a little piece of grass, and I'm wondering if you crop over just to where the road hits. I'm just wondering. It may not be good. I just wanted to see. I don't know. You lose more of the mountains that way. But sometimes those little bits that are in corners, if there's not enough to really be substantial, you just have to be careful. You just want to, maybe when you shoot a little wider or move over a little bit, just give yourself some room to play with. So
yeah. I think you could go either way. I didn't like losing as much of that mountain up there.
I didn't either. Yeah, it's probably not at the end of the world. It's just kind of one of those. I just noticed it. So
yeah,
you can probably darken that down quite a bit. It'll at least not match the beautiful orange trees on the other side of the road, and it wouldn't compete so much visually with that. But yeah, I agree. And then I would probably darken the road, because right now the road is a very similar tone to the mountain. You want the mountains to be kind of brighter. You want people to really focus on the texture and stuff. And I do this a lot, by the way, in photographs like this that I take. I really darken the roads. I kind of, give them a new tarmac, if you will.
Yeah, that's good.
And, it can smooth out some of the spots and stuff, so you notice those less. And then also it just kind of takes your attention away from the road being bright, because roads, when they're like that, they're actually very bright when the sun is on them.
Yes.
Yep. I think that's a great suggestion. And I just brushed on there, Brooke, and then you just play with these settings up and down. I didn't do it so evenly. I hit O. Well, actually, I guess I did. But it just looks like it's a little splotchy. So just be careful that you don't have splotches in there.
Teresa Rice asks, could you take the shadow out and leave the bottom in Photoshop? Toby, can you just go back to the original crop for a sec? Okay, so the quick answer is yes. It would take quite a bit of work to do it well. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little torn on whether or not you'd want to do that. I liked where that corner sort of met in the crop. But to her point, it does eliminate a lot of the road that is kind of straight in front of you where the photographer was standing. So
yeah, I would say maybe like you could split the difference. You could leave more of the shadow in initially in the crop and then go into Photoshop, and it definitely takes some work and some skill. It can be done. I mean, and if you have a high resolution shot, you can take pieces of the road from elsewhere and copy and paste them and stretch them and warp them. And I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can do it. It's just how much do you want to do?
Yeah.
And Kyle says that photo can be removed in Photoshop using frequency separation. I will admit I'm not familiar with using frequency separation. So if you guys know, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I would probably use like the clone stamp and some content aware and stuff like that. But frequency separation, that could be interesting. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
I know the idea of it. It allows you to basically, well, actually, no, that's luminosity. I don't really know.
Well, I know in portraiture, I know we're kind of like harping on this, but like in portraiture, with frequency separation, a lot of times in skin, you can separate the texture of the skin from the color of the skin, and so that way you can keep the same tones in the color, but you can soften the texture, and it's a really good. So those are like two separate frequencies. And it's pretty amazing what you can do in those situations. But I'm not that skilled in it. So
yeah. All right. Nice shot, Brooke. We're gonna move on. Lynn Sakai sent along this
wow.
Lotus Lily. I don't know what kind of flower this is, but it's pretty gorgeous and dreamy.
Yeah, wow. That is awesome. I love the processing of this.
I do too.
As far as a critique, I in a way to improve it at all, I don't have a lot of places to go. I'd like to see maybe a little bit more space on the left side, from where the petal, comes pretty close to the edge there.
Yeah.
But not much, just a little bit, and there might be room in the original file. But that is a beautiful image and really well processed.
Yeah, it really is. There's not a whole lot I'm seeing either. I don't know if there's a heavy vignette of some sort. It looks like there might be which isn't always a bad thing.
Mhm.
I just would wonder what it would look like with just a slightly less darkened edges, just because it feels like it creeps into the tips of the petals a little bit in a few spots. But I mean, that's like, artistically speaking, I love it as is. I just would be curious,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. A little bit more space and a little brighter in some sections, just a little. It looks like there's a little bit of an editing artifact here. It feels like a fairly straight line, and it might just be one of those things where it's natural, but it just happened. I would soften that a little bit there. Just because you've got just such kind of like this abstract flowy green back here. I'd like to see it be flowy everywhere, but the light and color of this is just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's killer.
Yeah. Very, very nice. All right, we're going to move on. Hey, Antarctica picture, David Carr.
Oh, there we go.
Can you use your recent experiences to help us with this one? This is Becky Miller's Antarctica from our trip last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just take about 2 hours like I did today, editing and then scrapping it, and then editing and scrapping it. No.
Well, I think we'd all be on the same page here, because similar to Brooks, at a certain point, there's just not much going on up in the sky.
Yeah,
and we can just kind of minimize that. And I might even go more panorama.
Yeah, I think I would.
And try to find the spot where it's interesting. I don't know if it's interesting to include those extra little bits of ice or not. What do you think, gentlemen?
I clip those out of there, actually.
Yeah.
I'd probably come up a little bit more closer to the shallow green water or iceberg under the water.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
It gives the whole image this kind of like striped effect, which can be really cool. I mean, I think our eyes sometimes see patterns and they see stripes and from a distance, and it's something that will draw you to that, So I like that. I think the thing with those little bits of ice that were there, it's like they weren't significant enough to be interesting. They were just almost like a distraction. And I realized that's what we really saw. And so it's always like that, there's always a caveat to that, but I do think you just want to ask yourself, is that really helping the photo to have little things here and there? So it's either cloning them out or cropping them out. So
I love John's comment. John Mayfield says, I think with clouds, it's easy to get caught up in the drama of them and lose the subject of the photo, assuming it's not the clouds. And man, hit the nail on the head. It's really hard because you see, you're taking a picture of a mountain range and then you see some really cool clouds above it and stuff. And if you can really incorporate that in there, like fill the frame with a bunch of clouds and those mountain ranges right at the bottom or something very dramatic, make us the subject of the photograph to subject. But I think in most pictures, you really do want to kind of focus in on, okay, what is the story of this photograph? Who's the main subject? And how does this all play together? And as hard as it is to eliminate cloud drama that's up there, sometimes just showing a little bit of it, people get the point. It's hard to do, and even today, I've edited tons of landscape images, and I still wince at times when I have to cut out really cool clouds from a picture because it's taken away from the subject.
Yeah.
I'd say, one of the rare exceptions is if you've got really nice leading lines in the sky that are bringing, your viewer's eye back down to the subject. But otherwise, I completely agree. One of the things that I'm seeing on my end is just a little bit of softness on these mountains in the distance. And I imagine that they are distant. That was one of the things that I experienced, especially flying the drone down there. I'd see these mountains and I'd be like, oh, I want to get a really close shot with a drone of those. And then the drone would be a mile away from me and the mountains didn't look any closer in its camera than they did to me. The distances out here are just so massive. But these mountains are a bit softer than I would like them to be, even at f8. And Becky, I'm wondering where you put your focus point, and David or Steve, where you would have put your focus point in composing a scene like this.
What are the settings?
We've got 82 millimeters, f8, 1/500th of a second.
82 millimeters at f8.
Yeah, and it looks to me, we're working with a, Becky sent along a slightly smaller one, or maybe it's been cropped in in a little bit more. It looks to me like these icebergs are fairly sharp.
Okay.
And I would think that the mountains back there at F8 would be fairly sharp too. And maybe I'm just being pickier than I should, or maybe something has happened to this copy, Becky, but it just doesn't feel as crisp back here as I would like it to.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the focus was, see, typically with the landscape photo, you want to go up about a third from the bottom, but you want to include you want to use an aperture that's going to kind of maybe hit infinity right there, and continue on with that in the background. I can't imagine why that wouldn't be the case if she was focusing on the first row of icebergs.
Yeah.
That at 85 millimeters, that wouldn't be infinity right there.
Yeah.
And everything would be in focus. I could be wrong, but yeah, I typically look to focus about a third of the way up the frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my general rule too. And, you know, I think focusing just a little bit past this initial iceberg, I think would have given the depth of field that we would like.
Yeah.
Because the water right in the front looks nice and detailed too. So maybe, you know, focus could have been grabbed just a little too close to the bottom of the frame.
Well, and that's an easy sort of mistake to make, I guess, because you just imagine yourself seeing this. You've got your camera and you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to take a picture of these mountains, and you just point the camera and it looks like everything's in focus. You're like, cool, it's focused. And then you look at the back of your screen, you're like, cool, it's focused. And then you open it up and realize, oh wow, there was some depth of field. You know, there was some shallower depth of field than I thought there would be between this element and that element. And it's very easy to do that because, you know, there are certain situations, obviously, if there had been something really close up to the camera and you're seeing that there's obviously going to be a shallower depth of field between that subject and this background, well, then it's like obvious to the naked eye. But when you're just sort of running and gunning with your camera, it can look like, oh, everything's great, you know? And so yeah, I've done this many times, and it's not like a deal breaker, but it's just something to be aware of in the future.
Yep.
Becky is in chat room, and she says the focus point was probably in the center. Look at the original file, the original crop. That probably does put it right, you know, in that first iceberg there.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, would be more towards the mountains, so hard to say.
Yeah. But just something, Becky, and folks to be really aware of when you have an image with a lot of depth to it, and you want to capture it all one shot. Be really mindful about where you're putting that focus point and what you're choosing for your aperture. Yeah. Andrew mentions in chat that there are plugins that you can run in Lightroom that will show you where your focus point was. That's great. That's true. They're out there. Go to lightroomfocuspointsplugin.com. It supports most Canon, most Nikon models. And that's all that's listed. So I know it's not going to work for everybody, but that can be another good feedback. Just like we like looking at the metadata to see what your settings were, and you should too. That's another bit of feedback that can be good. Yeah. And many of the software that will come with your camera, so the Nikon, the NX View, and Canon, the EOS Utility, or I can't remember what Canon's called, that will also show that too. So you could open those separately if you really wanted to know exactly where you line that focus point up.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to download one of those plugins. When I shot the wedding last night, I've got a few photos I'm looking through that are just a little soft. The subject is, and I'm like, well, where was the focus point? Because this one's focused, that one's not, and it's frustrating. But I just want to know, where am I hitting and missing? You know.
Yep. David, were you shooting the Z or one of your 850? What were you shooting with? I'm just curious.
Well, I shot with both. So on my Z, I had my 24-70, and then on my D850, I shot with the 70-200. That's pretty much all I used for the ceremony. And I find myself a lot of times with the 70-200, when it's sharp, it's amazing. But there's so many times when, you know, I'm doing everything I know to do to make it sharp, and it's just, or in focus, and it's just not. And it's so frustrating. So I'm just trying to figure out where am I getting that wrong? Because it happens enough that it's annoying, you know?
Yeah. All right. Thanks. I was curious.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Paul Wilford's got this just no title, but just kind of epic boot shaking scene.
Yeah.
It's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Guys, would you say the same that we've been doing with several pictures now? Is there any reason to keep up there?
Yeah, I mean, I think this as a really wide, because at first I thought about maybe isolating the just the lightning bolt on the right, but that is so cool on that left side, and I
Yeah,
think
it is. Yeah.
really wide shot like that looks just awesome. It's so dramatic.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. It really is. I'd see if we could get a little bit of noise reduction in there. Just a little bit of noise in some of the parts of the cloud. A little doesn't bother me, but it was just a little bit more than I wanted. And you could even maybe brush on a little bit of heavier noise reduction in the areas that don't have a lot of detail, just to soften them a little more. And that's kind of similar to Steve, what you were saying of, you like the soft sky against the hard clouds. I think here you could have a soft sky and still have these really crispy, edgy lightning bolts.
Yeah. I'm always so jealous when I see a lightning shot like this. I know. My whole inventory of pictures, I don't have a very good lightning shot.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, I just look at that and I think, okay, I could hang that over the sofa, or like just that could be a really epic print on the wall, just as is. I love photos where the impact is so strong right out of the gate that there's not a whole lot of editing suggestions. It's more just like, do you want to crop it a little differently? There's not a whole lot to fix.
Toby, what happens when you use the dehaze tool? Is there much haze in there at all?
It certainly gets more dramatic, and it brings that noise out more, but that's cool as well.
Yeah.
I was thinking dehaze in a shot like this, some noise reduction definitely would probably help, and doing some softening, and then maybe just doing some sharpening on the lightning bolts themselves. But I think that dehaze can really, a little bit goes a long way. I have to say that with that tool, but it can really help add drama to some landscape scenes.
Yeah. Cool.
Very
nice. I added, I think, Paul, you can go a couple different ways with this. I played with the white balance. I think it's good where you sent it in, but it could go warmer or cooler as well. I would just play with that and see if there's one that you appeals to you a little bit more. But as many in the chat room are saying, love the lightning shots, jealous of the lightning shots. And
absolutely.
Very, very cool stuff. Everybody, thanks so much for sending those in. I really appreciate it. If you're watching the show and you're not a Photo Enthusiast Network member, you can join now. We're running a special introductory price. It is a fantastic community. It is a fantastic learning resource for all things photography and videography too, as Kaz is releasing a series of awesome videos all about shooting video and editing video. So keep an eye out for that. You get new content added each week, a new video, a new article, and of course you have access to this fantastic community. Everything that you need to know is at photorec.tv/join. So check it out if you'd like to be more involved and have a community of nice people that are there to give you feedback on your images and, share some thoughts and, a little virtual community. So we're all in this together.
It's cool.
All right, let's move on. We've got stuff to talk about. What do we have to talk about? One, Sony has a new camera for vloggers, the ZV-1.
Oh, yeah.
David, you and I talked about this last week because it was rumored. I think it was the next day I got an email from Sony that says, hey, we've got a little invite to, come watch this little presentation. And they told us all about it. And I have to say, when we did the show last week, I was like, my audience isn't really vloggers. This isn't really that interesting to me. We gave it like a minute worth of talk and then moved on. And I, mostly still feel that way. But let me share my screen again here and share you some pictures. One of the things that I think is most exciting about this is the fact that for the first time, Sony has a flip out screen to the side.
Nice.
So that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, so it makes me wonder, Sony they know how to do this clearly. I mean, they should have years ago put in this fully flip out screen. But basically what this is their very popular little RX 100 series, but with this articulating screen that comes out to the side. And instead of a little pop-up flash and a viewfinder, they've got a nicer microphone up there and a spot to put in an even nicer microphone. So this is really designed for vloggers and product photographers. They went through during their presentation, they shared a lot of video of the kind where, you know, you're watching somebody and they hold some product up to the camera and, you know, it goes out of focus, of course, and you have to wait for it to refocus. This camera has built-in modes so that when you hold up your little makeup brush or your little futuristic camera, it instantly snaps into focus and you bring it back down. It's right back
that's
to
really
you.
Cool. Yeah.
So they are really seeing this vlogging market and also product photography and videography as a huge and legitimate market. My one big issue with it is it's using the slightly older RX100 lens from, I think, their Mark V version, which is a fantastic lens, but it's a 24-70. And a 24-70, if you are vlogging yourself, holding it out in hand, it's a little tight. You know, I got a big head here. I got a lot of forehead. and the percentage of forehead that you're going to be looking at with a 24mm lens at my arm's length, it's more than you want.
Yeah.
So, you know what, early vloggers who have hands-on with this, and my review unit's coming, are putting it on a slightly longer tripod and then holding it out a little bit further. But then it's not as awesomely portable as it wants to be. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I think they should have gone a little wider. But overall, it's a pretty impressive camera. And Sony, for the first time ever, is doing this. Like for the first month, it's $50 off, which isn't a huge amount. It comes in at $7.99. I should say that. Okay. Which it's a lot of camera and video features at that price. It's pretty impressive. When you look at the RX series, usually they're up in the neighborhood of $1,000 and maybe even a little bit more.
$50 gets you a pretty nice selfie stick to attach to that thing.
Ooh, you said selfie stick.
Bring a selfie stick back now.
Yeah.
I give you a hard time about the wide shot and the forehead and stuff like that, but I'm still sitting here wondering why your go-to thing was a makeup brush.
Because that's what dominates YouTube. That's what's stealing all my views. Those makeup tutorials.
They're watching makeup.
It's that's what they showed in the demo video that they shared with us. It was a makeup brush. But
I think there's quite a bit of that stuff. I mean, I think my wife has used some. I don't know if it's YouTube, but there's a lady that shows you how to do all these things with your hair and stuff. And I mean, there's definitely a huge market for that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm somewhat intrigued by that because I've mentioned before, you're seeing me through my iMac camera, which looks great, but I would love to have something that's portable and easy to be able to go outside and just do a video of something, of me reviewing gear or something. And I mean, I've got my good cameras and all that, but it's a pain to set all that stuff up and have to like make sure you're standing in the right space. And so to have an articulating screen would be super nice. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, you've got a really nice iPhone. You do a lot of Instagram video with your really nice iPhone. You happy with that, or would you like to upgrade to 1-inch sensor is what's inside this? And it also, the other thing I should mention is it's really tuned to expose nicely for your face. So if you're walking around or talking to it, it really gives a lot of priority to your face.
Well, that's nice. I mean, I'm sure it does a great job, and I think the phone can do a great job, but the front facing camera, or the selfie camera on the phone is it's good, but it's nowhere near as good as the one on the back. And this is the one I would want to use, but I don't want to be going like this and not being able to see what I'm doing. I don't know. Yeah. First world problems, but it's just hard.
Well, if you're creating content, it's it's a legitimate issue.
Well, it is because, when you go on YouTube and you see fantastic videos, yours are produced very well, and so many are produced so well. They're sharp and clean. Like you're like, that's the benchmark. That's where it needs to be. If people are going to take me seriously, is it needs to look pro. I mean, because people's attention span is, razor thin. So if they see something that looks crummy, oftentimes they're not going to watch it. So
Yeah. Were you saying something? I was starting to watch TikTok. You were talking too long.
it's just a terrible camera.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I totally. So, I mean, it's interesting. And will we see Sony users, will we see this articulating screen on upcoming models? I mean, God, that would be nice. I would really like that. They are nicer. So, yeah. All right, let's move on. This is where I whine a little bit about my job. So, Sammy Yang has released new 14 millimeter and 85 millimeter lenses. That's great, right? I mean, aren't we excited about these new lenses? Shouldn't I be excited about these new lenses? Let me put it over here. And just a reminder, show notes and all of this stuff is linked right down below this video. So the Classics Evolve, new 14 millimeter f2.8. This is the Mark II. It's got cool things like focus lock. So us astrophotography folks, we can dial that infinity focus in and then lock it there. We don't have to tape it, which never seems to actually work as much as we'd like it to.
Yeah.
Optically, very similar, but they have updated weather sealing and, as I said, added that focus lock. And so here's where I want to whine about my job. You go now and search for Sony wide angle lenses and look at how many there are. How am I supposed to stay on top of all of these different lenses and tell you which ones to buy?
We're not. Are you supposed to be sharing your screen with us right now?
Oh, yeah, I'm even bad at that part of the job. Gee, man, Christmas.
You're terrible at your job.
There we go. Okay. We've got the Sony 20. We've got the Tamron 20. We've got the Sammy 18, the Sammy 14, the Sammy 14, the more expensive one. This is autofocus. This is manual focus only. We've got a 12. We got the Voigtlander. We've got a Rokinon 18. We've got some Zeiss, Venus. This is just for Sony full frame cameras.
Grief.
The number of lenses in that range from basically 12 to 20 is what I searched for. It is just a massive amount of lenses now.
That's insane. Maybe you should go on DP Review or something and ask all the people on there what their favorite one is. I'm sure you'll get a consensus.
Yeah. The one will clearly rise to the top, right? And I'll be like, that's the one. Until somebody, the one everybody would vote would be which one's the most expensive,
Oh my gosh.
And this doesn't even have the updated lenses on here. So on one hand, this is fantastic. I love to see all of these different lens options for the Sony system, where just a couple of years ago, the lens selection in a lot of the cases was quite narrow. And now we have a much, much broader. But on the other hand, I feel a little overwhelmed trying to stay on top of which lenses are the lenses I should be recommending.
That's incredible. I mean, I was listening to something the other day talking about choice and how actually having more choice is bad. Like we all think we want more choice. We think, I want to have unlimited choices, but it just causes you're always regretting what you choose because you're like, well, what if the other one was better? And when really the margin of difference, but probably between all of those is way narrower than a professional photographer would realize. Like to the average viewer, they're probably going to be like, what? They're all wide angle lenses. And not to say it doesn't matter that there's a difference, but yeah, it's so hard sometimes to choose. We talk about what's best. This is best. That's best. I mean, best is such a small margin a lot of times.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think many of us could head out into the wilderness with any of those lenses and be quite happy.
Yeah,
especially the cheaper ones too.
There was a great book. I think it's from 2003, so it's pretty old now. I want to say the author's name is Barry Schwartz. I may be wrong, but it's called The Paradox of Choice.
Yes.
And David, it talks exactly about that. And he uses examples of like going to the Gap and buying a pair of blue jeans.
Yeah.
Do I want boot fit? Do I want skinny jeans? Do I want low rise? Do I want high rise? To picking out your healthcare coverage. If you're fortunate that you've got some choices there. And how it's a paradox, because the more choices you have, the more you just become paralyzed and you don't make a choice.
Yeah.
That paralysis by analysis factor. And it's a great book. It holds up today, even more so today, really, except a lot of the references are from 2003. But I could agree with you more. And our line of business is kind of interesting because we're always, kind of looking at the newest stuff or a lot of top end stuff and everything. And it can be very easy to fall into, well, this is newer and this is the more expensive high end. So this is better and this is what you should now get. And that for the average consumer out there that's looking to buy something, that's kind of why I love that challenge last week. If you've got $2,000, what are you going to get? What would you personally go out and buy with $2,000? $2,000 is a lot of money. My budget for my first professional camera when I was starting my business was $800. I blew through that pretty fast, unfortunately, but it was a great camera. I started my business with a Canon Rebel,
Yeah.
Somewhat inexpensive lens. So
no, Steve, it's so funny you mentioned that book because that's like, I read that as well. I've read it twice and it's like, that changed the way I think about everything. Yeah. And I was actually going to go pull it from the shelf because it's right up there, but it's, it really applies to what we're talking about. All this gear is, we have so many options and they all purport themselves to be the best. And, clearly there are differences. There are some things that are better than others. But again, that margin of difference is often way more razor thin than we think it is. And I just say, just pick something and go with it. And that book has actually caused me to, oftentimes if I'm at a restaurant, back in the days when we went to restaurants, if I can't decide, the menu's got 900 things on it, I just kind of go, I'll just have this and just go with it. Just go with something. Because if you sit there and, pick it apart,
A really fun thing to do there. I've done this a number of times. I haven't done it in a couple of years. And maybe the waiter or waitress thinks you're a total jerk for this, but I'll take three things. I'll say I'm looking at the steak, the chicken, and the fish.
Yeah.
You choose when you go back, tell the cook to, whatever you want to choose, and then surprise me when the dish comes out.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
It's great. It's awesome. And it kind of can help break the ice with, the waiter or waitress.
That's cool. That's good. That's a good thought.
Very nice. Very nice. So, Steve, it's clear to me now why you were taking so long to try jeans on when Frank and I were waiting for you in Alaska. Were you reading this book in the dressing room?
No, I had to see how the high rise looked between the low rise or the boot cut.
There's Frank and I bored out of our skulls as you're trying on different jeans.
You know what? I have to tell you guys, you'll be proud to know I was buying some Carhartt pants. Are Carhartt's jeans? I don't know. They weren't denim or anything. Work pants. And Renee now refers to those as my live-in pants during quarantine. I wear those darn things every single day. And I work in the yard with them. They're the best pants I ever bought.
That's cool.
And you guys will work for it.
There's the book.
Oh,
nice.
Why more is less.
Nice.
I highly recommend this to anybody, any consumer, which we all are in America.
Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you. All right. Okay, now we move into the part of the show where I go into my apology section. So earlier this week, I released that Monday Minute that said, if you've lost files in Lightroom, here's how I suggest you get them back. And part of that is showing you how to easily search for these files in your computer. And as a Mac user for many years now, it just works. I take that file name that it's missing, I plop it into my search box, and within seconds, short seconds, there is that file, or it can't find it at all, which means it doesn't exist on my computer anymore. Somebody commented and said, yeah, but Windows search sucks. And I thought, another one of those grumpy commenters. And then I was helping somebody on a one-to-one call yesterday, and we had to do that exact same thing on their Windows search. And we put in the file name, and that little green progress indicator just started moving. And it just really just moved so slowly. I was like, okay, let's move on and talk about something else. We'll come back and check on that. Seriously, 5 minutes later, it had found a couple. And then after that, it still found another one. And Windows search. So I'm apologizing for just putting this tip out there in a way that Windows people, you thought it was going to work as well as it could on a Mac. And apparently It's not going to
Mm.
just do that. Why is Windows search so lame? And to bring this back to me, I think we started with me, but just to make sure we know we're talking about me. I'm on the search for a new Mac because for some reason this thing can sit here. My MacBook is sitting here running part of the show without crashing. But if I'm doing other stuff on it, like the other day I was in a spreadsheet and trying to get numbers done really quickly, it just kept crashing over and over again. These are hard crashes, not just the software, but it reboots and all that. It's clear it's time for a new machine. And Steve, we don't have to get into this now, but I think used is great, but then I have to worry about picking up a butterfly keyboard that's going to get a bit of crumb under it and then be rendered useless.
I mean, that's a valid concern with everything that... It's not like an isolated incident or something. It was a real problem that Apple was having with that.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Your experience was not very satisfactory, and you're living on that keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's something that you're going to be keeping for hopefully another 5 years at least, then it's like you don't want to save a few $100 and then wish you had just spent a few hundred more, knowing that at least you started with something fresh. That's always a tough call.
I really like the MacBook Air that's out now. For me, that would be my choice because I've explained this before on the show, but I've got my desktop and I do everything on there. But when I travel, I just want something super light, super easy to carry around. Put it on a tray in an airplane and it doesn't take up a bunch of space or weigh a lot, and just get a little bit done and then put it away and not have to lug something heavy around. So for me, I like the MacBook Air.
Yeah.
I don't know what their plan is with the MacBook. They kind of did a whole refresh of that a few years back, and then it just kind of fizzled out. And then there were all these rumors that they were going to do updates to it and stuff, and then they came out with a new MacBook Air. But the old MacBook was actually a smaller footprint than the new MacBook Air. And so I don't know what Apple's doing here, but I wish they would come out with a new MacBook, something kind of in between the Air and the Pro. Yeah. But for me, I'd choose the Air. Toby, I know you do a lot of video stuff, and it's just you get into the Pro line, and it definitely makes it a lot heavier. And
yeah, I know. I think the Air would be good for me too. I just worry, as David, you just said a minute ago, I buy the Air, and 3 years from now, I go, it's really struggling with the larger files. That what if I upgrade to the A7R4 or something? Should I have just went ahead and got the 13-inch Pro to carry it around? So
yeah, it's a catch-22 on that stuff. My last couple of computers have been MacBook Pros. I guess I just want to buy it and know that there's not something else that I'm longing for. And because sometimes you get the thing you're longing for and you're like, well, actually it's not that much better at all. So it's a toss up, but I don't know. There's because I think you're right, Steve. I think the MacBook Air, especially for what you're trying to do, like you're on a trip, you maybe want to cull through some photos, just kind of look through them, make sure they're cool, maybe do a little tweaking here and there. You're not trying to do anything major, or you're not trying to edit 900 photos at one time on it.
Yeah.
But just for that sort of like interim level between that and your desktop at home. But if you are doing anything kind of heavy lifting on the road, or you would like to have that capability, it's kind of like, that's why I just went ahead and got that 15-inch. It's a big, heavy computer, but I don't know. It's not,
it'll be able to handle everything that you throw at it.
Yeah, it just gets it done. I don't know. Everyone's got to make their own choices on that.
Tune in next week for more Toby whining about what computer he should buy. It's there's not a lot to be thankful about coronavirus and COVID, but I am glad to have this extended stretch home to let me figure this out, because I would literally be forced to buy something right now because the level of which this thing seems to crash when I actually need it to work.
Yeah, sure.
Why it can sit here and not crash for this whole period, I don't know. Okay. Steve, I imagine as a real estate photographer, a few people have sent this to you. You hear about this Bigfoot. Bigfoot has been spotted in the real estate listing of a house in California. This is pretty clever.
Yeah, somebody tagged me in it recently. I've had it sent to me. I've seen it a few times now, and it's first time through. I really got a kick out of it. It's hilarious. Yeah, look at that.
Anything similar you could do in the Cincinnati region?
Yeah, I put this off to everybody I've shot a home for. I said, "Oh, look, I'll tell you what to do. Just press the shutter button, and I'll get my Bigfoot costume and stand there." Actually, a few weeks ago, before my haircut, I kind of looked like this, and nobody's taking me up on the offer. It's a combination of hilarious and creepy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Anytime you see a person in a professional real estate photo, I don't care what they're doing. Creepy. I don't know why that is, because you're expecting to see a scene with nobody in there, and you want to picture yourself in that scene or your stuff or living there.
Yeah.
To see another body in there, whether it's a creepy person looking through a window or somebody just sitting on a couch, it just looks weird.
Yeah.
It makes me think of remember 3 Men and a Baby? I think there was a scene where there's like a little boy like behind the curtains, and it's like
a cardboard
scary
out or something. They got stuck back there behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's freaky.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys something that's not really related to photography, but I've noticed here we have quite a few houses going up on the market in our neighborhood because of a bridge issue, and we're basically an island now. It's very difficult to get into Seattle easily. And it's also just that time of year when more houses go on the market. And some of these newly built houses are being completely furnished solely for the purpose of showing them and photographing them. Growing on the East Coast, that wasn't a thing. Or maybe it was just I was in neighborhoods that weren't at this price level. But is that a thing in Cincinnati or Atlanta?
Toby? Sorry, a couple comments here.
They are staging. They are staging the house. You know, they are filling it with furniture just for the purpose of showing and photographing. You don't get that when you move in. They'll take that all back away, and then you move in with your own furniture.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, that's been a thing in California at high-end properties forever.
Yeah. Wow.
I've got a number of flippers that I work with here who have me do shoots for them, and most all of them stage, once they've done a home. And I personally think that it's money very, very well spent to stay home. And I say leave it there. It depends on the price point of the home, but I say leave it there while people are viewing the home too, because you just take the model home model that they used. They can do a planned community, and you have a website with these beautiful, bright, professional photographs, and then you go and look at the home, and all the furniture is there, and you can imagine yourself in it. So it gets you thousands and thousands of more dollars in your pocket by spending, anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 on staging a place.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks. I appreciate being able to pick your brain.
As a photographer, I love it because everything it kind of flows. You have designers that do it usually. And it makes my job so easy. They've got couches in the right place. There's no knickknacks. There's no magnets on the refrigerator. There's no, some of the coffee cups all over the countertop and dish towels hanging from every surface. And the things that drive a real estate photographer nuts.
Right. And you are clearly explaining the difference between like someone who thinks they're a real estate photographer and an actual real estate photographer who's going in and noticing all of these small details that add up and makes, maybe one or two things here and there doesn't really matter, but on a whole makes a significant difference in kind of the feel of the image and the feel of the place.
Oh yeah. And people get so caught up in like dusting and cleaning baseboards and stuff like that. Like, do you realize you have a refrigerator just filled with papers and magnets and stuff? And got, dish towels hanging from every stove and refrigerator, dishwasher, and area rugs. I'm constantly just putting all this junk behind the camera to get the shot. And then you got to put it back. And now with coronavirus, it's even riskier. You're touching. You're moving plungers and toilet scrubbers and temporary soap dispenser bottles from Target and shampoo bottles and stuff. You got to move all that stuff out of there. So stagers, they've got it dialed. Nobody's actually moving there.
And Trulina, who also lives in Maryland, where, is the last place that I shopped for a house, really, in between Vermont. So that's my answer, Trulina. So she says it's popular in Maryland. Where have I been? Well, one, I guess I'm cluing you in onto the kind of price of houses that I'm looking at as a YouTuber. 2, a big chunk of my time was spent in Vermont, where the staging was maybe there's a stump in the yard. So,
I have to think about staging. It is actually so big, and this is really sad. I have a client who I had to sign up to be on Home Advisor Pro. If you know what that is, it's basically where if somebody wants a construction job on a house, they go to Home Advisor and you find people that are vetted. They do a background check on you. They do business license search. They make sure that you're true and tested, and they take your references and stuff like that. And and you have to pay to be on there. Well, in order for me to bill this particular client who sends me lots of jobs each year, I had to be on Home Advisor. So I signed up, and there is no category for photographers. The category for home staging. So I'm listed under home staging.
Oh, that's annoying.
And then I have to specify, photography, and then you can expand your zip code range so you can get all these leads and stuff coming in. I'm like, no. I don't want to pay for a bunch of leads that come to me thinking that I'm a stager. So taking it down to one zip.
Wow,
that's annoying.
Yeah, that is a bummer.
But staging is a whole massive category in there.
Cool. All right. I've learned so much, and maybe shared a little too much about myself. We'll see. All right.
That's all right.
Let's move on real quick. Third-party batteries. Do you use any, Steve or David?
I hate them. I don't know. Maybe there's some good ones out there. I know some people have had good luck with them. I will never, ever buy a third-party battery.
No, I don't use them either. I think I had some. When I had that Leica camera for like 6 months, it came with like 5 batteries, which was part of the reason I bought it. It was used, but they were all like just garbage aftermarket batteries. And I think they lasted like 15 minutes.
Would your opinion change if they were made by Duracell?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, actually, it probably would, but yeah. I don't.
Sadly, Steve, I don't see Hasselblad listed on here. But we've got Canon, we've got Nikon, and let's say we do the D850, and no D850. How about D750? Wait, they use the same battery, don't they?
Yeah, that NL15.
Yeah. So maybe selection is a little on the light side. I did see. First off, what the heck is the Auto Boy Juno under a Canon? I have no idea what that is. But we've got Canon, standard 6D Mark II is on here, and of course the 5D Mark III and 4. They all use the same battery, and the Rebels and stuff like that. So Duracell will be making third-party batteries now. I suspect they're going to be cheaper. I also suspect and hope that they are better than, as Steve's opinion of third-party batteries. Mine's pretty similar. David, you seem to be on the same page. They're usually not worth the savings. The
and
lifespan.
Well, and it's interesting because I just try to imagine, all of those things are made in China, and you imagine like what could be the big difference between this factory and that factory, and they use the same materials here as these use here, but there's a difference. I don't know what it is, but so my wife's iPhone needed a new battery, and it was during all this coronavirus stuff, and so I couldn't take it to an Apple store to have a new battery put in, so I ordered one from just like eBay or something, or Amazon, and it was just some knockoff. It's just not as good. Her phone doesn't. A brand new battery you think would last. Like, you remember when you get a brand new phone, you're like, oh my gosh, the battery life's amazing, and we didn't get that experience at all. So I don't know why, but I agree. This is one of those things where you think, oh my gosh, I'm saving $30. Just go ahead and just get the thing that's going to work. But this Duracell,
well, he has an interesting comment. He says those are almost certainly rebranded, made by somebody else. I seriously doubt Duracell actually manufactured.
Probably so, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But
if we're diving into a kind of a new market, that he's probably, I would probably agree with that. And to your point, David, if I went into the camera shop and they said, okay, well, you need a battery for your Canon, and we've got this one by Canon, which is $40. We have this one by Duracell, which is $30. All day long, I'll spend the extra $10 for the Canon one, despite the Duracell name, just because it was made for that camera, or the camera was designed with that battery in mind. And I know the quality control there on all the products for that.
Yeah, and plus if you are having an issue with battery life at some point, you're not going like, gosh, should I have spent the extra $10? I mean, at least then you're going like, well, something's wrong with my camera, or I can call Canon and say, hey, this brand new battery is not holding up. Like, there are places to save money, but I just feel like stuff like that, especially your batteries, like if you're out there shooting, the last thing you want is for your batteries to die or to be unreliable.
Where we've seen a lot of problems with third-party batteries is in very cold environments. A lot of our clients, I mean, those things just absolutely drain, which environments will do that to batteries anyway. But I've noticed a lot of people having problems with third-party batteries.
Yeah, and I think that points to their reduced capacity for the most part. You know, just shows. My hope with Duracell is, I don't know if they're manufacturing or not. I think Caleb's probably right, but I would hope that there would be some quality control. They are stamping the Duracell name on these after all. But I also wonder, I mean, this news article was, I picked it up from Petapixel, but it's clear that at least Canon, they've been selling since July 2018. So, but these reviews are just, so-so. I don't know. It's nice to have another option, but I would say that as we have just said, you're usually better off just going ahead and buying the actual battery. So this is $27. The Canon, as it sells on B&H, is $63. So it's about half the price. But if it's not always reliable, then you're not really saving any money, are you?
Yeah, and I will say, if I can just harp on this a little longer. So going from a DSLR, which typically the battery life on DSLRs is pretty great. Even my D850, I've never been like, oh gosh, I'm running out of battery. And then when I got a Z6 and got into the mirrorless world, I realized, they do drain batteries faster. But in all the trips, all the weddings, all the things I've shot with the Z6, I've never been in a situation where I needed more than 2 batteries. In fact, I've never really been in a situation where I needed the second battery. I just was glad I had it. So, yes, be prepared, but you don't need to show up on a trip with 6 extra batteries for your camera. I mean, unless you're just going to be trigger happy the whole day with your shutter. And obviously different camera systems are going to respond differently to that. But I think sometimes we get a little too over anxious about that particular issue, especially as these cameras get better and better. And I know, like the new Sony, I know the A7R4, the battery life I think is better than it's ever been. From what I've heard, I think all that stuff's getting better. So have a good backup. If you're only going to be needing 1 or 2 backups, just spend the extra money, get the good one.
Yeah. I think for most photographers, I think with my Sony, even the A7R3, I'm fine with traveling the world with just 2 batteries. And that's shooting photos and some video too. Videographers, you're on a different story. You better have pockets full of batteries for almost all of these cameras as well.
As John says, 1 backpack for your camera, 1 for your spare batteries. If you're a videographer, for sure. He also had a great comment. He says, if something goes bad, like a shorter swelling with the manufacturer's battery, they'll probably cover it third party away. And that's a good point and a good consideration for peace of mind, if nothing else. There is a value to that.
And Brian mentions the fact that with a lot of the third-party batteries you buy, benefit, though, is you get these kind of cool little USB chargers often. And I agree. I've done that in the past. You can use those to charge your standard batteries. But sometimes we've had clients, this is what I love about doing this job, because we have all of these people that are kind of like guinea pigs in a lab for us. Not that we make them be the guinea pigs, but they come and say, look at this cool thing I bought. And then 2 days later, they're like, it doesn't actually work. And we're like, let's file that away for future reference.
That's right.
We had Chuck, who has a third-party battery charger that refuses to fully charge his Sony batteries to 100%. Actually, I should say, that might not be correct. He might have just had a battery that wouldn't charge fully to 100% no matter what he put it in. So, but they're cheap, but they can be nice, extra handy backup. These additional USB battery chargers to have around. Okay, let's move on. And maybe this will be a topic that one of you guys want to bring up, or our chat room will want to bring up. What is the tech that we would like to see in our next camera. And let me put next in quotes, because when I put this out there on social media, I let people dream bigger. Maybe it's not the next camera you're going to buy next year or in 2 years, but maybe this is the camera you're going to buy in 5 years or 10 years if you want, or you could keep it. This show is just made up. We just fly by the seat of our pants. I'm almost done my beer. So it's really whatever you would like to see added to your camera. And Steve, you had one thought already you shared, in our messaging. You want to go ahead and start off with that, something that you'd like to see in a future camera?
Well, I made a short list, but that's probably my initial and best thought. So I'll get to that in just a second. I was thinking of a tilt and shift, either in camera or a mount. Although that's becoming less of a desire for me as software is getting a lot better with transforming and stuff. A super long lasting battery. That was one of the first things I thought about. We talked a lot about that. And then I'd like to see, and we're getting there with artificial intelligence and editing software, but like a learning spot removal. So if you just spend some time learning as I go through a photo in Photoshop, things that I want to eliminate, and are there patterns and stuff there? And then can you automate spot removal on a photograph? That would really save a lot of time. If it could learn what my editing technique is and then be able to do it to where it does a good job, I think that would be kind of cool.
Good. I like that.
But the big one that I came up with, I'd love to see in cameras as they come forward, is a smartphone-like screen resolution. And I did a little research. My X1D has a resolution of 920,000 dots. The Sony A7R IV is about 1.44 million. And the iPhone SE, well, actually, I didn't pick a specific model. I looked at anywhere from the 6S to the newer ones, anywhere between 2 to 3 million dots on our smartphones. And that's just normal. I mean, I've got a $400 smartphone here in my hand. It's the same screen that they've used in, 5 iterations of this phone. And it's got, I think, 2.5 million dots on it.
Yeah.
So even Sony at 1.4 sounds like a lot, but you're talking about double the resolution on your phone. Why they can't just put that on the back of our cameras, and then the processor too. That's the Hasselblad. I got to give it a lot of credit. It's super slow and drives me nuts with certain functionalities, but that screen is awesome.
That's cool.
Navigate through just like a smartphone.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. Those good suggestions. And it's battery life. And then when we put these nicer screens on, it's going to be that constant battle. I think I think we forget how good battery life has gotten because it is powering a lot in these cameras.
That's true.
Aren't a lot of the newer screens with OLED and stuff like that?
It's true.
A lot less on batteries.
Yeah.
The OLED screens are way less taxing on energy.
Or you can do liquid ink the way they used to do with those old the Amazon Reader, the Kindle.
Yeah.
And they do that with the top displays on a lot of the new cameras, the Fuji's, stuff like that. It's this like liquid ink that's super high resolution. It's just not color. That's fine. Obviously, you need it for image review, but functionality and stuff, you could have a third of the screen could just be liquid ink.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Good suggestions. I like those. And the AI too. I think we'll come back and revisit that a little bit more when I share some of my notes. But I like that solution and I like the idea. So are you thinking Lightroom? Lightroom could learn how you edit and then start that, or are you thinking more in camera?
No, not in camera. Definitely edit. I think Lightroom, but Lightroom you can customize so easily and you can automate a lot of stuff already in Lightroom. You just have to, create some presets and stuff like that, or you could sync and everything. But in Photoshop, where I take my pictures in and I finish everything, I can end up spending hours just spot removing and home stamping and stuff like that, just to at least have an auto feature. And maybe it doesn't activate until you've processed 100 photographs or something, to where it's got enough of your own data to make assessments on where you might want to go with it. And then you hit auto. If you don't like it, you just back out.
Sounds good. David Carr, what do you got? What's your dreams and hopes for the future?
Well, I think I'm ready to see cameras that are not reliant on SD cards and XQD cards and all that.
Mhm.
Maybe where you have one as, you know, your backup, because we all like to have a backup, but you know, you're taking photos. I mean, when I take a photo with my iPhone, it just shows up in my photo gallery on all my computers, all my Apple devices. Like, there it is. And it would be so amazing if you take a photo with your mirrorless camera, your DSLR, whatever, and it's in the cloud. As soon as it gets access to any signal, it's just uploading those images. I get it with RAW, they're big files. It might not be quite, it may not be the best idea to try to upload that much information, but maybe it's uploading a JPEG just as a safety, or just something, because I just feel like we're at the point where the phone's been doing that a long time.
Mhm.
And we're always, like photographers, we're always talking about, oh my gosh, the phones are taking over photography. Well, it's things like that I think could really revolutionize the camera world and take it into the 21st century. You know, and I just to say this, like, in the same way that, like, so as I was watching today, the attempt at a launch of the SpaceX, you know, spacecraft, seeing it's been 9 years since NASA launched a shuttle, and seeing how far we've come, just looking at the spacesuits these guys were wearing and all the tech, it looked so modern. It looked so futuristic. It looked like Silicon Valley had finally met up with, you know, space exploration. And I think that's where we need to be with cameras and stuff. But I get it. It's a limited market. I mean, there are tons of people that buy cameras, but still, most people that take photos these days are taking them with their phones. But I just think we can marry those two technologies. That would be one thing. And then what was the Samsung camera that came out years ago with the big screen on the back?
I've got that queued up because I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I just think moving in that direction would just make so much sense.
Yeah. I was curious because I knew it had a big screen, 4.8 inch. And then, Steve, when you're talking about higher resolution, I Googled, it only had a 944K dot monitor. So even though it's a large screen, it isn't that much higher resolution. But
that was 7 years ago. So,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, that's right. 7 years ago,
So
we had this.
And we really haven't gotten any further than that.
No,
Yeah.
it ran Android. You can see it had Wi-Fi and LTE connectivity. And actually, I don't know. It did say 4G LTE. I wasn't sure if it was only 3G way back then, 7 years ago. So, and you know, we had some, Tim wrote in, Tim Lucas, some of you know, was like, I want to see this again in cameras. Why can't they install this that gives us real, more fine control over what our cameras can do? And, you know, have easy over-the-air software updates as well, like we do from our phones.
Yeah.
I think that would be nice. Yeah.
I get it, though. I know the operating system situation is really the biggest factor. Is like, you're probably not going to get Apple to pair with one of these camera companies I mean, Apple's got their own cameras. I mean, they make the phones. That's the camera. And they're not going to want to join up with Canon or Nikon to create an iOS version that goes on the camera. And Nikon's probably not going to develop, or Canon's probably not going to develop like a seriously awesome iOS that's going to work on the back of their camera. So I understand, like, there's some limitations within the world of tech, but I just think there are certain things where I'm like, why do I still have to take an SD card out of my camera and plug it into a reader and then upload it into Lightroom? And it's like, that is such a clunky process in a day and age when everything's so wireless. I guess that's the thing, is the more wireless we can make this stuff, it's probably the better.
Yeah. And that's my dream. And, you know, Canon tried to, and I feel that was why when I came up with this topic a couple of days ago and I reached out to you guys, I feel like some of the stuff we've touched on in a way. I want to come home with my camera and set it on a little mat where it starts charging and the pictures dump into a temp folder and are like, hey, we're already here in Lightroom. How do you want to rename us? What do you want to do next? And
that's awesome.
We feel like we should be there. And Canon had that Connect base station again, like 5 years ago, I think, that it supported certain cameras. You put it on there and it slurped the images off into its internal memory. But I never tested it, and it seems like it's sold terribly and its reviews are mediocre. So, but why hasn't somebody come back and come up with an ecosystem like this? It would just be really, really nice.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, John says he's surprised Sony hasn't done this since they have a phone division. It is interesting. You know, they just announced their Xperia Mark II their phones are definitely incorporating more camera like features with some of the Sony focusing system, some of the Sony like cinema profiles for shooting video. So there is cross, breeding there, but really only on the software side, not so much hardware. So
I guess it all comes back, everything comes down to dollars and cents. I mean, if it's selling, if it's working, I mean, that Samsung camera would have been a hit if it had sold. It just didn't. And obviously, I think you have photography and photographers. There's this purist element to so many photographers, which I appreciate, that doesn't want to get too techie with it all. They still want to have that kind of rawness to it. But then you have the tech side. This is where Sony's been so brilliant, is to marry high tech with the artistry of photography. And so I think it'll take time, but we will get to these places.
Yeah, I think so. I want to pull out a couple comments from the Facebook group I shared. Roger says he knows this isn't physically possible yet, but he'd like a bridge camera with an APS-C size sensor that has a 60 times zoom. So what comes closest to that right now is Sony's RX10 series, RX10 Mark IV. That's a 1-inch sensor, and it does have a 60 times zoom in it. And obviously, when you put a bigger sensor, the mechanism and the elements behind the zooming have to be that much larger. So it's going to be a much larger camera. But here is, and Christian Hager did this, a curved sensor. That might be the solution to a lot of our future problems, because the reason there are so many elements in a lens, you look at some of these lenses and they say 14 elements or 22 elements. It is simply to make sure that light coming through hits that flat sensor equally, because the glass is curved, the lens is curved. And the only way to correct that is with more lenses. It's just a wild engineering in there. Well above my pay grade.
I have something on my mental list that I didn't write down. I forgot it when I was writing stuff down. Is I'm looking forward to the day. I know it's coming, when a lot of those glass elements that we have in our lenses are plastic, because there exists today clear plastic that actually exceeds the clarity of certain glass, and it would be a lot lighter. It would be probably easier to manufacture once you get all the machines in place and that kind of stuff. Not initially. And you can also do a lot of different coatings and stuff with plastic. It seems to cheapen the whole thing, but think of how much lighter. Think if you could eliminate certain elements of glass with coatings, and use plastic instead of glass, how much lighter those lenses will be and retain the quality and the clarity.
Yeah. And then put a curved sensor and reduce further some of those elements. Are we going to be a bunch of old guys going, when we had lenses, they weighed 4 pounds?
Exactly. Well, I mean, I will say the 300 millimeter lens that I always rave about is such a small lens, and it's somehow through that technology, they've been able to minimize the number of elements and still get incredible resolution and reach. So, I mean, I think there's so much that is possible, but again, it just comes down to the penny counters. I mean, it's just, stuff has to make sense financially for these companies to pull it off. And, but in the meantime, I think we all just have to appreciate what we have and do the best with it. And don't let the technology be the cart that leads the horse. Make great photos, create beautiful images, whatever it takes to do that. And just as the technology comes along, don't be afraid of it. That's the only thing, is like, I see people who are afraid to switch to mirrorless because they're like, I don't know how to shoot a mirrorless. I'm like, it's just the same thing. It's just the insides are different. So
it still makes pictures.
Yeah.
Real quick, just to kind of wrap this up, other ones that I've seen a couple of different people mention is built-in ND filters, either a physical that can fit behind the lens, so you're not constantly screwing on something, or some type of electronic system that can, suppress the ISO to a lower number of the sensor so that you could do those longer shutter speeds.
Yeah. And you don't have to chase them as they roll off of a rock.
Yes. You have some experience there, Steve. But honestly, you're not the only one. That somebody else wrote in and says, I feel like I'm almost always about to drop mine, or I've dropped it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I need to get a new one. It's useless now. It doesn't screw on anymore.
Yeah.
That is a good point, though. I mean, every time I'm screwing one of those things on, I'm like, what is this? Like, this feels like
I'm afraid of damaging the threads on my lens.
It feels like starting a car with like a pulley, like a lawnmower engine pull or something. You know, it's like
yeah.
So
yeah. John says curve sensor is going to be tough. It's going to render current lenses obsolete or useless, so it'd be a tough sell. I mean, look, yes, that's true. I wonder if you could have an adapter for a period of time. You know, like the mirrorless are doing, Nikon, that decurves the light.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
It's a cool. It's just kind of fun to imagine what the future will hold and where we'll be in a couple of years. And then there's the whole topic of where will drones be in 5 years, as they've gotten so smart just in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
How much smarter they'll get. So, but I think that was a good. Discussion, and we can stop there and start to wrap this show up. I forgot to say that Roy's not here today. He's tied up in a meeting. I haven't seen. He's usually fantastic at collecting questions as they go by. I didn't see any questions, but if you got them real quick, throw them in the chat. And David, we forgot to do picks last week, which is just kind of our random. What are we into? What is something we'd recommend that could have nothing to do with photography at all? And I'm going to go first and kind of steal. You already mentioned it. The rocket launch that was supposed to happen earlier today was scrubbed because of weather. It's going to launch again on Saturday. And as you said, their suits are awesome. The capsule that they're launching in is just finally looks futuristic. I saw it posted a picture of it compared to the space shuttle. And it's just such a huge difference in the look of technology and the feel of it. It's very, very cool. So I would recommend everybody tune in on Saturday. I don't know if they've mentioned a time yet for that or not.
I think it's around 3:30. It might be 3:33 or 3. It's in the 3 o'clock range.
PM.
Eastern time.
Eastern time. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Let's hope it happens.
I'd highly recommend that. I don't know, David, I stole your pick, so you can make that yours too.
No, it's good. No, I mean, I have been watching videos on that because like I haven't really I'm such a space nerd, but yet at the same time, I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to what SpaceX is doing. But it's pretty remarkable to see. Like, I saw some footage today of all the people who are working on making the suits. Actually, they were talking about who designed the suit, and it's all like this, like millennial, like people with like nose rings and big beards, and like that is who's doing the space program. But it was so cool to see like this whole new realm of like. They weren't all like nerdy looking people. They were just like, they look like people that worked at Starbucks, but they're running SpaceX under Elon Musk's, charge. And so, but I think it's really cool. We're entering this new age of all that. So that's been cool. My wife and I started watching a show last week called Defending Jacob on Apple TV. And gosh, it was intense. It's a really cool, we only watched 2 episodes, but I'm excited to watch more. It's kind of heart-wrenching, but it looks like a really powerful show. So that's
cool. Check it out. Steve, what do you got?
Yeah, you mentioned Defending Jacob. That was actually the catapult that got us to watch the morning show on Apple TV. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago I got a new
that's right.
cell phone, so I got a free subscription. And I saw that viewer retention of Defending Jacob was super high. People were loving the show, and it was second on Apple TV only to the morning show. So I thought, okay, Apple TV is new. Apple TV Plus in our home is new. So let's watch the morning show, and then we'll watch Defending Jacob. And we started getting into it a couple weeks ago, I mentioned on this show, and we just finished it recently. And man, it is awesome.
Yeah, it's
so good.
Cool.
It ended just so cool. I can't wait for season 2. So
cool.
Not to everybody's taste, I'm sure, but my wife and I absolutely loved it. And so we're going to dive into Defending Jacob soon. We've got my mother-in-law here. She's been with us for a few weeks. She's staying a month. And then my daughter from LA actually flew out and surprised all of us by appearing at our doorstep a few nights ago, which was just amazing. I thought it was a FedEx package being delivered. And here is my wife's youngest daughter. And so we've got a house full. So
that's awesome.
Getting any TV time in, it's been a little difficult the past few days, but that's a good thing.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, I think that wraps up this show. We went a little long today, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. David Carr, thank you. And
Yeah, thank
folks,
you.
you can find his YouTube channel. And of course, his Instagram is right there.
Thank you.
And Steve as well. And we will be back, I think, next Wednesday. I do have to really start checking in with you, gentlemen, though.
That's cool.
As things start to open up, you might actually have a real job you need to go to.
We'll let you know.
Somebody will be back here next week with me to chat more. And just a reminder that we have on June 4th, so next Thursday, a week from tomorrow at 6 p.m., Mark Loper, aviation photographer. He's got some fantastic pics, looking to pick his brain about all of that photography that he does. So tune in for that as well. All right, everybody. Chat room, thank you so much for hanging out. Everybody stay happy, healthy, and make sure you're feeling loved wherever you are, whether you have to isolate still or not. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye.